So competitors, let's get our cameras turned on. So while we're waiting on that, my name is Stormy Massey. I'm going to be your host tonight. So I am a coach here I've been working with VBA for a little bit now. I am in my 5th year of coaching and teaching debate. I actually did policy debate for 9 years. So I was 4 years in high school and 5 years in college. So I've pretty much been around debate for more than half of my life. My dad is a debate coach. So yeah, I'm really excited to keep working with BDA and doing fun things like this demo debate. So we're going to introduce our competitors. I'm going to go through, and when I call out your name, competitor, just give us a little bit of background information. So, again, your name, grade, and any years of debate experience you have, etc. So we'll start with Daniel. So Daniel, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Right. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So, hello, my name is Daniel. I'm in grade 10 right now in St. John's School. And I think I've been debating about like 2+ years for now. And then about my debate experience, yeah, it's really great. My favorite format, it's this format, the public forum. And I've also tried like, Worlds, BP, and CNDF before, but like I'm selling for this one for now. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Daniel. And let's go to Raymond.
My name's Raymond. I'm also in grade 10. I go to Elgin Park Secondary, and I've been debating for 2 years-ish, I think. Yeah, and debate's cool.
All right. And Raymond, what's your favorite format? Is PF your favorite format?
Probably, yeah.
Probably, yeah. Okay. Let's go to Dylan. You'll introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name's Dylan. I'm currently in grade 11 in U Hill Secondary School. I've been debating for, a little over, it's just almost 4 years, starting grade 8. And my favorite format is probably PF.
Right, thank you. And then Rosie. So Rosie, if you'll introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Rosie. I am in grade 10 and I also go to U Hill. I've been debating for about 3 years now, but I've been doing PF for a little under 2. I think PF is my favorite format as well.
Awesome, excellent. Well, thank you all for doing this. We really appreciate it. It's going to be awesome. So for all of my people, I did hide the non-video participants just to simplify what you've got on your screen there. I think I did that. I think that should apply to everybody when I fix the settings, hopefully. So for tonight, for our topic, if you are not aware of what the topic is going to be, if you're like, what is this debate going to be about? Let me send that to you. So it will be in English and in Chinese, so everyone has the opportunity to process what it is. I will read you the English version. So the topic is resolved. On balance, Turkey's membership is beneficial to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So once again, on balance, Turkey's membership is beneficial to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So for this topic, this is a topic that our students debated back when was Stanford, everybody? Was that was last month, right? Or was yeah, it's been a little bit, we're already on a new topic. So what'd you say, Rosie?
I think it was like February 20th, or it might have been like earlier February, but I'm not sure.
Yes, yeah, you're right. So for this topic, there's something that you'll notice with this topic, a couple things that I want everyone to pay attention to. So 2 things is first, I want you to pay attention to the predictions and scenario building that happen in these cases. Public forum is a very evidence-driven type of debate. And so you'll see here a lot of what we call scenario building, which is piecing together sort of predictions about what might happen in a geopolitical sphere based on what we're seeing in the world. The second thing that I want you to pay attention to is if you are a debater, I want you to try and flow. PF is a very good format to practice flowing because it has all of these sort of inner working pieces where we're going to directly apply arguments, and you should be able to see these things sort of align next to each other. So with that, the next thing that I want to talk to you all about is the flow for today's debate. So we've got an idea of the topic. You know who your competitors are. So this is what the flow is going to look like. I have it zoomed out right now, so you might be able to read a little bit, but it's going to be, it's going to be happening live. So basically, this is the Pro tab. So when I zoom in and the debate starts, you'll see in the left column, there is the English translation of what is being said. And then on the right column, you will see the Chinese translation. And so we have this set up for both the pro team and for the con team. So you'll see a couple key things here. This big orange line right here, that represents a contention. So the most important thing that you need to know, especially if you're flowing, is that all of the contentions will happen under these orange headers. For the pro cases, we have these outlined with the impacts under green, and then any extra subpoints in yellow. And then on the con case, it's very simple. It's just that orange, and then the impacts are in green. So that's what our flow is going to look like. So once we start the debate, you're going to get a very zoomed in view of the flow happening in real time. So I'm going to stop my share for a second and check the, okay, awesome. So while we are doing the debate, just a few ground rules and reminders for everybody. So that will be the flow that you'll be able to see happen real time. Make sure if you are a competitor or someone who does debate, I would like you to try and flow on your own as well to get those skills going. Make sure you pay attention to the predictions. And then for the instructions for everyone, so remember the chat is open to hosts and co-hosts. So if you have any questions, you can send them to either myself or the VDA person in your list. For my competitors, again, make sure that you've got your Discord set up so that you can communicate with each other during the debate round. And then a friendly reminder to all of my people watching, please make sure that you keep your video off as well as your microphone, just so we don't disturb the speakers. At the end of the debate, we are going to have a Q&A. So if you have any questions that happen during the debate that you want more of a robust answer to other than just like a chat response, please write all your questions down. And then at the end of the debate, we can have a big discussion about anything that you were misunderstanding, or, you know, if you're wondering about anything that we've done. As well, at the end of the debate, we'll give you a little bit more of insight into how all of this came together and how we were able to get this debate ready for you. So let's see, is there anything else that I'm missing, Tina?
It's all good. Perfect. Let's start.
Right, perfect. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen now. For these first speeches, the first pro speech and the first con speech, we have already what we called pre-flowed. So we've already taken notes on all of the things they're about to say. So if you just watch my screen, I'll have it shared, as well as you'll see the competitors on the right side of the screen. But while they're speaking, I'm going to scroll slowly, so that way you'll be able to see the notes as they're happening. So any competitors have any questions? Nope. So I will be sharing my screen to show everyone the flow, and then what you should be able to kind of track things that way. So we'll all be able to see it. So yeah, Wayne, we can talk about that in the future for sure. But now a personal chat. Okay. So let's go ahead and let me share my screen. A reminder to the competitors for this debate, I'm going to give you 4 minutes of prep time. So if you're wondering how much prep we're going to do for this debate, I'm going to give you 4 minutes. We do have the pro speaking first for anyone wondering. So pro will speak first and con will speak second. So let's go ahead and have our first pro speaker. You've got 4 minutes whenever you're ready.
All right. Okay. So just before my speech, because this debate happened like early and late February, it's actually set before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which like it's sort of about our argument. So don't be confused on it. Okay, my time is going to start on my first word. Contention 1 is Ukrainian defense. Russia is planning to invade Ukraine. Kroch wrote that Ukrainian intelligence reports that they have uncovered plans for a Russian invasion in early 2022. Clocking 22 finds that Russia is amping up for its navy and sending ships to the Black Sea. The impacts of Russian invasion is huge. In a conventional conflict, Cookman in 22 finds that there will be up to 75,000 deaths. Apart from these direct deaths, the Ukrainian defense minister in 21 said that an estimated 5 million Ukrainians will be in need of refuge in Europe. And there's two reasons why Turkey deters this invasion inside of NATO. Reason 1 is submarines. Turkey is key to stability in the Black Sea. Toin 21 finds that Turkey is uniquely suited to balance Russia in the Black Sea region, bordering Ukraine for 3 key reasons. First, their modernized navy is designed specifically to counter Russian influence. And second, Turkey has built up its area denial technologies, which are able to control the conflict space in the Black Sea. And third, Turkey has set up military cooperation with Ukraine, Georgia, Azerbaijan, Syria, Libya, and provides them with millions billions in military aid to check Russian aggression across the region. Turkish submarines are a unique NATO asset, where Augsburg in 22 explains that NATO cannot protect Ukraine from the Black Sea because the Montreal Convention prohibits submarines and heavily limits the military ships from entering. Turkey is NATO's only submarine force in the Black Sea. Without Turkey, NATO will be unable to stop Russia in the Black Sea. Our second reason is the diplomatic efforts. Turkey's diplomatic efforts is critical for Ukraine, where another agency in 21 reports that Turkish foreign minister actively shows the support for Ukraine and believes that the crisis in Ukraine could be settled through diplomacy. Turkey's positive relations with Ukraine are a diplomatic asset for NATO. Kulebo in 21 writes that Ukraine and Turkey are working together closely and have close ties both economically and politically. But even more, as Kisi on the Tuesday of the past month explains that Turkish and Russian foreign ministers met to discuss Turkey's role as a mediator to de-escalate tensions in Ukraine, where Isaac in 22 confirms that NATO's pressure on Turkey is key to Ukraine's defense. He furthers that it is because of their NATO memberships that makes them such a good mediator in this situation. Our second contention is the Middle East nuclear scenario. NATO prevents Turkish proliferation. McDaniel in 20 writes that Turkey will not proliferate in the status quo because they have the benefit from NATO's nuclear defense umbrella. Turkey would proliferate in the absence of NATO, where Arvo in 18 finds that without NATO protection and with so many nuclear states within striking distance of Turkey from all sides, they will feel pressured to secure their own nukes and could achieve this in just 3 years. This will cause a cascading proliferation effect in the Middle East. Arvo furthers that a break between Turkey and the US will lead to another cascading nuclear proliferation and a devastating war in the Middle East. The first impact is the regional conflict. Kronig in 15 explains that due to increased confidence and decreased chance of a counterattack, states that gain nuclear capabilities are 950% more likely to engage in a given conflict than states without nuclear weapons. The second impact is arms race and Iran. Arvo in 18 explains that a Turkish nuclear program could cause Iran to restart its own nuclear program, which means that both countries becoming nuclear armed in between 3 to 5 years. The Journal of Conflict in 2013 explains that the use of nuclear weapon between Israel and Iran is again feasible. If Iran is nuclear, we will need Turkey even more. Alhas in 19 finds that the Kurasik radar station is key to protecting NATO members from Russian and Iranian ballistic missiles, and Zinder in 19 points out that this station is unique and irreplaceable. This is because the Safak in 17 finds that other radars in the region are only capable of reaching Iran's borders, making Turkish systems unique. Skemet in 18 finds that the effective defense system is critical to nuclear deterrence from a nuclear Iran or from Russia. And this is why, for all these reasons, we're so proud to affirm this motion. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, First Pro speakers. Or First Pro speaker, my bad. So we will move on to our first con. First con, did you need any preparation time?
No, we're good.
No. Okay, just making sure. All right. So first con speaker, whenever you're ready. And actually, before we do that, so after we have the first con speech, we will have a 3-minute crossfire. So for anyone unfamiliar with PF, we do the first speeches and then we do the 3-minute crossfire. So whenever you're ready, you've got 4 minutes.
Okay, before I begin, can I just check if I'm audible to everyone and Stormy? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. We offer two contentions. First is cohesion and second is security. First is cohesion. Got20 explains that a number of disputes between Turkey and European allies has been undermining NATO cohesion and the ability to make collective decisions. If left unaddressed, this could cause serious damage to the world's most powerful alliance. Turkey's increased aggression against NATO members leads to further tension and jeopardizes cohesion, as Wiesen 17 finds that Turkey's blocking of non-NATO member Austria's cooperation with the alliance has significantly harmed military cooperation within the allies. Worse, Skaziri in 21 explains that Cyprus, Egypt, France, and Greece have formed secondary alliances against Turkey. This is especially dangerous as France and Greece are part of NATO. Elahuzan 21 articulates how this threatens NATO, as the 2030 plan can only be successful if NATO members are concrete on political cohesion. There are 3 main impacts. First is deterrence, as CSIS in 21 argues that a lack of cohesion in NATO has empowered member states to bring bilateral disputes into the alliance, jeopardizing the deterrence. Marcos in 21 finds that Turkey's hyper-nationalism and corrupt ties with Russia have led to decisions that have compromised NATO decisions and weakened the alliance's military readiness. Second is Middle East stability, as Cohesion explains that Erdogan is increasingly using Syrian refugees as private militias to fight in Syria, Palestine, and Iraq, to places that is even far away as Kashmir, destroying regional stability. Harding and Tunowan furthers that Turkey's military campaigns are making it hard for the alliance to bring stability, as Ankara sends troops to stabilize Iraq, whilst the rest of Turkey continues its military operations in the north. This undermines NATO's strategic relevance and weight. Lack of Middle East stability is dangerous, as this destabilization is especially important to avoid in the status quo due to the probable escalation of the Iran-Israel proxy war. Third is miscalculation, as Trennan in 21 confirms that the chance of miscalculation poses the highest risk for conflict, as the US Department of State in 20 furthers that since 2016, Turkey suspended more than 125,000 civil servants, arrested and imprisoned over 90,000 citizens, violating basic human rights. Kolka in 21 notes that advancing liberal democracy is the key unifying factor for NATO, and if NATO is not democratically unified due to Turkey's human rights abuses, miscalculation is imminent. Kimball in 22 reports that the US signaled to Russia that nuclear weapons are an option in recent talks. This is detrimental, as Episkopoulos in 21 confirms that Putin openly admitted that Russia would use tactical nuclear weapons. Second contention is security, as Rubin finds in 11 that Turkish air defense systems, such as the S-400 purchased in 19, would allow Russia access to critical NATO codes and technology. This threatens NATO's collective security, as IASS in 19 reports that NATO officials are concerned that Turkey's deployment and operation of the S-400 could expose some of the F-35, the latest generation fighter jets, highly classified features to Russian intelligence agencies. This compromises security by giving Russia influence over Turkish and NATO defenses, as Pollock in 20 says that Turkey has no intention of going back to NATO security and has instead used the S-400 to track down US aircraft such as the F-16. This itself is considered a direct offensive against NATO, and actions such as these feed Russia inside information of the military system, allowing them to develop superior military defense systems to counter NATO's. Second is nuclear war, as Roman in 19 finds that the purchase of the S-400 sparked fears in the Pentagon that Russia would be able to spy on the F-35, also undermining any NATO cohesion with Turkey. And emboldened to attack by their knowledge of NATO's military and inside information, Russia could capitalize on NATO's weakened military and user-targeted defense systems to confidently attack, knowing that NATO wouldn't be able to defend. The result is devastating, as Ritter writes on February 4 that in a war with Russia today, most of the US forces would be killed before they could even get close, and it would result in a sweeping Russian victory. Worse, the missile superiority Russia knows that it has would see them firing their nuclear missiles, as a Princeton study in 19 quantifies that even one low-yield nuclear weapon fired between the US and Russia would result in 34.1 million deaths and another 57.4 million injured within the first few hours, for a total casualty count of 91.5 million. And in an all-out nuclear war, Wiener in 17 reports an estimate of 500 million deaths, excluding deaths from a resulting nuclear winter and famine. For these reasons, we're very proud to negate.
All right, so if you're watching the flow on the screen, for the rest of the speeches, we shouldn't have the scrolling issue. It was just the way that we ended up, that it ended up formatting with the Excel spreadsheet. But for the remainder of the speeches, all of the stuff should be right next to each other and sort of even as we scroll down. Okay, so I'm gonna stop my share for this crossfire period. So let's have our 3-minute crossfire whenever we're ready.
Okay.
You can have the first question.
Okay, yeah, thanks. So time starts in our first word. Turkey has been in NATO for 70 years, so why haven't any of these impacts triggered?
Okay, so you're basically asking like why NATO hasn't collapsed already. So we're seeing that in the status quo, they're largely making these problems worse. We see that they form secondary alliances against them, and even if these things haven't happened, like forming secondary alliances still means that they're preparing for a time in which they'll have to go to war against Turkey. That's why they're banding together in preparation for when this day happens. And we see that it's imminent, that our probability is 100%. So we see that even if it hasn't happened already, it's going to happen as long as Turkey's membership stays with NATO. Does that make sense?
Just to follow up, but isn't the secondary alliances proposed by Greece and is actually them who are actually harming the Turkish minorities within Greece? So shouldn't we target all of this problem in the root of the problem, but not the victim, which is Turkey?
Okay, so we see that these secondary alliances are happening because of Turkish aggression against NATO members, which leads to this further tension, which means that Turkey is the reason why the 4 of them are banding together against Turkey. May I have a question?
Of course.
Okay, so you mentioned how Turkey has this military navy that's designed to counter Russian aggression, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so Sutin on Tuesday actually finds that Turkey just let in the Russian naval landing fleet straight into the Black Sea Straits. Can you explain to me how letting in the Russian naval landing fleet to the border of Ukraine is called countering Russian aggression?
What we're trying to say here is that firstly, what Turkey has is the only option that NATO can provide within the Black Sea. But secondly, we're telling you that because it's also limited by Montreux Convention, but when this war actually begins, we are telling you that Turkey will be an extremely effective ally in responding to Russian invasion.
Okay.
Now,
May I have 2 follow-ups?
Yeah.
Or just a follow-up?
Yeah.
Okay. So first, if they're bound by the Montreux Convention, where exactly is your solvency? Because where do you prevent a Russian invasion from happening if Turkey can't even prevent Russia from building up their forces and attack them until they actually invade?
we're telling you that Turkey acts as a deterrent so that Russia wouldn't really think or at least put the majority of their forces inside to as a major route of invasion. We're telling you that if a war potentially starts, that Turkey can actually be able to deter Russia effectively, as in be able to use their militant navy and also use their submarines to even defeat Russia in the Black Sea region. Now, may I have a question?
Okay, we don't see how setting in their whole naval landing fleet is called deterring aggression, but yeah, you may have a question.
Okay, great. I mean, we have 10 seconds left. I think we can just call the end to this crossfire.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, good cross.
Good cross.
Right, beautiful. Okay, so remember, you have 4 minutes of prep time total. So my second pro speaker, would you like to take some prep time?
No, I'm good to go.
Okay, beautiful. Give me 1 second. All right, so for my people observing, at this time, we are going to be jumping kind of around. I'm going to have to jump from, flow to flow based on, well, probably for this speech, we'll just be focusing on the con. But yeah, we'll be doing some refutation to this speech, but just pay attention carefully to where I'm putting all of my notes. And it should be, it should make sense and be intuitive. Okay, so whenever you're ready, second pro, you have 4 minutes.
I'll start time on my first word. Okay, start off at the top of their case on their first argument on cohesion. First, we want to lean into their narrative about how cohesion is low, because this is the exact reason why con doesn't solve. 1, Kuhn 18 finds that France, Germany, and Italy disagree with the US's views of Russia being a threat, causing separation within the alliance. 2, nuclear submarine defense pacts between the US, UK, and other allies have angered France as they weren't included, causing further conflict. Vasquez in 21 says that France lost $65 billion from the submarine deal. France was, quote, angry and bitter about the situation and believes that it was a stab in the back, causing further separation. 3, Tarinian in 20 finds that China uniquely hurts cohesion through FDI. She explains that China's BRIs is enhancing ties between NATO members and China, causing a divide in the alliance. So if cohesion is as important as Con tries to tell you, then NATO should be fully dysfunctional right now. But that's not the case, because NATO doesn't need to focus on cohesion, which is why Lindy French in 20 finds that cohesion doesn't solve, but only ignores issues. But second, countries are always going to disagree. The more important thing is that they share a burden under NATO and they have strategic security interests that align. Third, there's no impact. Ogluzu in 19 affirmed that NATO is putting together a team to combat any lack of cohesion, meaning that the issue is already solving itself. Now on the alliances against Turkey. First, the alliances are formed by Greece, as Genturk in 22 finds that Greece is seeking out alliances against Turkey rather than resolving issues. What's more is that Greece is pursuing expansionist policies, violating international law, and creating instability in the Asian Sea and suppressing its Turkish minority. Furthermore, Greece's foreign minister makes attacks on Turkey almost on a daily basis. If there's a threat in the region, this threat arises from the unilateral actions of Greece. None of this is Turkey's fault. Finally, in their best case scenario, there's no impact whatsoever. They haven't given any examples of when war has actually broken out due to these alliances or anything. There's no time frame whatsoever. And on the refugees, first, Adam 21 explains that the U.S. created the refugee crisis. Following the Arab Spring, the U.S. launched a covert operation to provide for ISIS and Al-Qaeda. The U.S. supplied military training and $7 billion worth of weaponry to these groups to topple Assad's regime. Second, you can turn this argument as Turkey helps house these refugees. Bertrand in 16 writes that Turkey spent over 7 billion euros of its own resources on addressing the Syrian refugee crisis. She explains that Turkey has been collaborating with the EU to help a huge number of people who need it. Furthermore, many Syrians feel safe and integrated into their new communities. Kuriski in 21 finds that very few Syrians left Turkey when given the chance, as 89% of them felt well integrated into the host community of Turkey. Finally, and more importantly, Prime 19 finds that when Turkey is not in good terms with NATO members, it will unleash its refugees into Europe. This is more important because it only happens in Khan's world in the absence of NATO. Now on human rights, first they tell you that Turkish human rights need to come first. You'll always vote on self-defense before that, as international relations professor Goldstein explains that preventing war is the most effective means of promoting human rights because peace creates the preconditions for those rights to flourish. This is why you'll vote on preventing a war in Ukraine first. Second, you can turn it again, as Borgen Project finds that a quarter of the entire world's humanitarian aid, Turkey became the leading country in providing aid to those in need, surpassing the US. Second, human rights are always worse in their war. McGuire 21 explains that Turkey's cooperation with Russia would only increase if NATO pushes them further from the alliance, meaning that a NATO without Turkey would align with Russia, a country who restricts political and personal freedoms. It's always worse in their world. Third, NATO can keep Turkey in check, as Christian 18 reports that Turkey has no oil to sell, so they rely on Europe for oil. And he writes that the EU is Turkey's most important partner in this respect. This dependence gives NATO members leverage over Turkey, which keeps them in check. Now, on their second argument on security, on the S-400s, first reject the Khan's characterization as the S-400 purchase does not mean that Turkey is turning to Russia. As Nikkei 21 quoted a former Turkish diplomat saying that Turkey's bilateral engagement with Russia should be seen as a necessity. It does not mean that they're eyeball to eyeball. In fact, Turkey literally has a navy in the Black Sea to counter Russian influence, as well as a radar base to detect Russian missiles. Daniel reads this in case. I wouldn't say this is the behavior of chummy allies, but furthermore, Turkey doesn't have the F-35 jets, which makes the S-400s useless, as Remfer 19 says that they could only spoof the F-35s if Turkey had both the S-400s and the F-35s, but the US already kicked them out of this negotiation, this program. What's more important is that Turkey is already working to reverse the deal, and the US is working to implement their own systems into Turkey. This is because Turkey is willing to reverse the deal. Turkey's like not allying with Russia. This is exactly why there's no problem whatsoever. Thus, we affirm.
All right, so for my people who are observing, the flow is giving me some problems. So let's take a second. I want to see if we can fix the formatting issue because I wasn't able to flow a huge chunk of that. So give me a hot second.
Can I take this opportunity to turn on the lights in my room because I can barely see in front of me right now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks.
I think the flow is working now. Like I changed the formatting a little bit. Now it's like stick on the top rather than at the bottom. So do you want to take a look?
When I hit enter, it's taking me to the next box.
Oh, yeah. You have to do shift enter.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah.
All right, give me a second. I usually flow on a Word document, as everyone.
It's okay. You use your Word document. That works as well.
I mean, I can flow this way. I can do shift enter. It's just we're just gonna have like this missing chunk, but you know, it's a work in progress. So let's see. This was on the security argument. Paste. No.
It's okay. We can use your Word document. I feel like we have more students here today to learn than parents to observe. So make it a learning opportunity for the kids to watch you flow while doing the debate.
Okay, yes. So I apologize for that last speech. I'm trying to like tech figure out and also flow at the same time. So I missed like a huge chunk of some of that stuff. But we will have, at least for this next one, I will be able to get a huge portion of the argumentation. So let's do this. So for our second con speaker, did you need some preparation time?
Yes, I'll take running prep.
Okay, so starting your prep now. All right, and if any of my competitors have a digital flow that you can send to me, that would be helpful because then I can just paste things into mine. If not, then don't worry about it. But
Okay, I'm done. I forgot how much that is. It's like 50 seconds-ish.
Yeah, you still got, let's see, you've got like 55 seconds remaining, or no, not 55 seconds. You used 55 seconds, so you have 3:05 left.
Okay.
Okay, let me share my screen and we're gonna do it this way. So yeah, roadmap would be awesome. Off time roadmap. Not that you weren't gonna do that, but yeah.
Yeah, I was going to do that. So off-time
Okay.
roadmap, I'll be going through their case and I'll be doing some frontlining to our case. Okay, let me just get my documents open.
All right, so to be clear, are you starting on pro case or con case?
Oh, I'm starting on pro case. Then I'm
The pro
moving
case.
to
Okay.
frontline. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Give me 1 second. Let me paste this. Wow.
Oh yeah, it's Storm's normal flow. It's like
Yeah, we tried to do something fancy, but I'm just technologically inept apparently. Okay, so whenever you're ready, Dylan.
Okay. Okay. Get a timer and I'll start. Apologize for voice cracks today. I currently have a cold and my voice is Anyways, okay. So Pro has its first contingent on Ukraine invasion. Basically, they talked about their access to Black Sea and their submarines, the Belgian army. So we have 4 responses. First of all, you can turn this as soon as Tuesday find out Turkey just allowed Russia to send their naval landing force in the Black Sea through a Turkish control. This means that Turkey either can't check against Russian aggression or has no intention to. They cannot prevent a war on Pro. But second, NATO doesn't need Turkey anyways. It's NATO on January 7th explained that NATO's multinational land, naval, and air forces are all stationed in Romania, not Turkey. CSI 1817 specifies that NATO's Black Sea fleets consists of only 2 ships from Turkey, but 4 from US, Canada, Bulgaria, and Spain. And further that NATO's Algiers missile defense system is all stationed in Romania. Our opponent has failed to prove to you why Turkey is the only country that can check against Russia's aggression. NATO has more than enough sufficient forces to without them. Then move on to talk about uniqueness, how Turkey is the only force in the Black Sea that we already disproved about. Moreover, US submarines are more than enough sufficient to check Russia. In 17 finds in 20 finds out US just activated submarine forces in these exercises with NATO carrier groups to check Russia in the event of war with Ukraine. That means we don't need Turkey's army uniquely to check against Russian aggression. Now let's move on to your point about diplomacy and how they can basically negotiate and this war will not going to happen. 4 responses. First of all, Turkey has no leverage. Current 21 finds that Turkey's ambiguous politics make them both too weak to counter Russian expansion and too disinterested in battling Russia on behalf of NATO. The second, turn it again, as Turkey cannot get a job done. They need the US. Russia's goals for NATO to stop expanding their interests near Russia, but Turkey does not have the power to control what NATO does. Only the US has. Therefore, it's useless for Russia to negotiate with Turkey. This is why AFP in 22 tells us that Russia has rejected all new talks until West meets their demands of Ukraine. Even if you don't agree, Current 21 further that Turkey neither has an interest in battling Russia on behalf of NATO or the Western Bloc. That means they simply don't want to do what their pros trying to do. And if you buy their scenario, we should see talks happening and tension de-escalating. While we see it's still high with 75,000 new troops coming to the Ukraine border. Now let's move on to their second contingent, the Middle East proliferation. First of all, this is completely non-unique as Turkey's already trying to nuclearize as a NATO member. NATO's Erdogan's publicly pushing to become a nuclear weapon state. NATO membership does nothing to stop this. Second, turn again as Lands in 21 finds out Turkey's already working secretly with Pakistan and China to develop early nuclear systems. This is happening in their world as a NATO member. So we don't see how keeping them inside them will prevent them from proliferating further. Prefer our strong Russia and weak NATO nuclear scenario, which is the most likely scenario, nuclear scenario into this convention. Now let's move on to your last point on radar system and how this is uniquely suited to counter Russian expansion and aggression. We thought that this radar isn't unique as all land on 18 explains is easily replaceable if Turkey were in NATO. Viking 12 Excite, Israel already had this type radar for a decade. Its X-band radar can see deep into Iran and they can have Shabbos ballistic missile launch with enough time to protect their population and launch up 2 interceptors. That means their radar simply isn't unique enough in today's case to prove to you why Turkey is an important ally and does more good than harms. Now let's move on to our front line. On our cohesion point, they basically talked about how NATO should not be functional if cohesion doesn't exist in the status quo and how burden sharing should be the main focus in NATO. But these responses are primarily backed by a fact of their current unity. But we tell you that even if Russia unified NATO against a common threat, Turkey's membership is tearing it down in the future, in the long term. If their responses were true, it would extend our Shirazing 21 card, since that we wouldn't see Cyprus, Egypt, and France and Greece forming internal alliances against their own member. And further, we don't see how Turkey committing genocides against NATO allies, the Kurds, in fighting ISIS is considered helping NATO cohesion and stabilization effort. And on our point about S-400, our opponent misunderstood a link as Turkey and Russia being eyeball to eyeball. This is not the main issue here. The main problem is they have access to all of the NATO coded technology. And this is the main issue that they fail to prove why it isn't true in their part of the world. For these reasons, we're very proud to oppose.
All right. Okay. So for the next period, so we're going to have our 3-minute crossfire. So let me stop sharing my screen. Right, because that was the, yep, that was the second con. Okay, so 3-minute crossfire whenever we're ready.
Right, Dylan, are you ready?
Yeah, you can have the first question.
All right. Okay, I'll just start time on my first word then. Okay. So if Turkey's already working to reverse the S-400 missile deal, what's the impact here?
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
If Turkey's already working to reverse the S-400 missile deal, what's the impact here?
They already bought it. They're not gonna. There's not gonna.
No,
be
we're giving you
like
evidence that says that they're reversing it and they're planning on implementing their own defense system.
That is not true. Simply tell that they can't refund a weapon that they bought for billions.
We have evidence that says the exact opposite. I can give that to you if you want.
They're reversing, but that means we still get time frame right now because this is happening. Access to their codes and info sharing is happening.
Okay,
right
have
now.
they actually leaked anything though?
Okay, can I finish? So even if they are reversing the deals, but it's not gonna happen. Like they're not gonna end the deals like right now. So that means the time frame is happening for our side. The possibility is 100%. Like
so does that not
culture.
Does that not significantly decrease the time frame though?
How? Without that,
because the deal is going to be reversed. Okay,
sorry?
Yeah, that's fine. You can have a question.
Okay, so on our S-400, you basically said how they don't have F-35 in their arsenal. That's why they can't access, like Turkey can't access that fighter jet and like.
Yeah, they can't be like exploiting the defense system if they the NATO system if they don't have it.
Yeah, I understand, but your card says that as the newest generation of F-35, the US isn't sending to Turkey, but that's like in production. They have to access the one that they're using right now.
No,
like
they've already kicked them out of the deal, so they don't have
it's a deal because they're producing the newest generation of the same fighter jet. They're still using the older version. It's like I'm still using.
Is the rest of NATO using that?
Yeah, they're still using it, and that's why they have this access to technology.
Do you have any evidence that says that Turkey has the F-35s and are using them right now?
Yeah, they're tracking them, not using them. Well, I mean, that's our.
Can I have that evidence?
Yeah, I can give it to you after class.
Okay.
Can you have?
Can I have a question then?
Yeah.
All right. So you see that tensions are like building in Ukraine and like diplomacy is not working, right?
Mm-hmm.
So doesn't that just increase the importance of Turkey's Black Sea Navy?
No, they don't, because like we tell that there are U.S. ships also in the region. So yeah, sure. Even if
are there more than like Turkey right now?
Yes, they are.
But also like the Montreux Convention prevents NATO from sending in more ships.
Because it isn't in war, right? But does that just prove that your prevention of war point doesn't just happen? Because like if they can't prevent any country of sending
you miss our link here actually. Diplomacy is preventing war, and the Black Sea is defending in war. I think that's the link that you miss here.
Like defending in war, but then when
like if Russia's going to invade it, then you need Turkey's navy.
Yeah, I'll address that in final focus. That's cross.
All right.
I'll be taking around a minute of prep, starting now.
All right, and while he is prepping, I do want to share my screen. I had some things that I was able to fill in, so I'm going to slowly kind of scroll down to fill in some of that stuff.
Actually, Dylan, can we get your F-35 card saying that Turkey's tracking them right now?
Okay. They're being tracked? Okay.
Yeah, I'm so sorry for calling.
Also, thank you, Grace, for supplementing me with your flow. I appreciate it.
No problem.
I'll pause my timer waiting for that.
Yeah, we can do that. You've used like 30 seconds, I think, is what I have.
How do I send it? Because the chat, I can only send it to Storm.
Can you
I can send. Do you want me to send it to you in Discord?
Yeah,
that
works.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll be easiest. And let me know when to start your prep back up once you got it.
那一遍吗？
All right, we got the evidence.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah, I'm at 25 seconds right now, so we'll restart.
Okay.
We'll resume. Yeah. All right. That is around 1:15, which kind of exceeded 15 seconds. But just as a non-time roadmap, I'll be going over the themes in today's debate on first nuclear war and then on Turkey's contributions with weighing at the end.
That would be, is that 2 minutes, 45 seconds left? I give you 4 minutes of prep? I can do that. Yep. All right, what was that roadmap again, just for my sake?
First on the theme on nuclear war and then on to Turkey contributions with weighing at the end.
Can you specify pro case or con case? Just so I can know where to score.
In these specific themes, I'll be going on first the pro case and then on the con case.
Okay, awesome. Just make sure you tell me like if you're on the pro or the con whenever you're signposting your contentions, just so I can go to it. All right, whenever you're ready.
My time is going to begin on my first word. The easiest thing that you can vote on in today's debate is the decreased probability of a nuclear war, which will impact billions of lives. Onto the first theme on nuclear war. On our contention, we bring you this arms race and the heuristic radar base. They say how we are already developing nukes, but that's basically untrue. First, Turkey does not have nukes. They're just voicing its want for them. We're telling you that without NATO, Turkey will actually proliferate because they have no form of nuclear defense. That's a huge difference between wanting and desperately needing, right? They say how NPT exists, but again, we tell you that it's not effective. But lastly, they say how the heuristic radar base has replacements, but again, their alternative does not work, as Israel isn't even in NATO. But even more, our evidence tells you that other radars in the region are unable to even reach Iran and Russia. But furthermore, we tell you that specifically to Iran has become a major threat when Turkey is out of NATO because they proliferate. Con is just solving the problem that again they create themselves. Fourth, turn on human rights, as even if you buy the strategic effectiveness for Israel, Edwards in 10 finds that protecting these Israelite forces gives them free reign to kill thousands of Palestinians and tens of thousands of bombing raids. But on their side, on security, right? They give you this contention on the sole link here is cooperating with Russia with the S-400s. Again, we don't see how it comes with any relevancy in today's debate. Exploitation simply will not happen. Cross-supply will literally happen in history. But Russ in 21 finds how Greece got the S-300 defense system and it has nothing. It's developed by Russia, it has nothing happened. When the Turkish defense minister said in the interview that Turkey is open to a similar deal as Greece, which we tell you that the exact same thing will happen, nothing will happen, right? But even more, we tell you that there's no S-35. They won't be even able to use the S-400s, and nothing happened despite to what they claim. And the card that they gave us simply just says how US does not have any access to the S-35, which is actually supporting our argument, and we hear zero response from the rest of that. Let's move on to the second theme on preventing NATO conflicts. To our case, where we have the Ukraine conflicts, we explain in case that both Ukraine and Russia agreed this week, or not this week, but the last month in the week, to a trilateral negotiation in the near future, literally that Wednesday. Diplomacy is working, and NATO membership is what is unique, because Yaro in 21 confirms that Turkey's critical role as an impartial negotiator. Right, we tell you that the Black Sea, they are missing the key link here, right? Because they're saying that we're not preventing any of that, but the thing is that Turkey will only intervene when there is a war in this providing defense, and they built their submarine entirely just to deter Russia. Now a bit onto the cohesion points. Throughout the rebuttal and constructed, they emphasize how cohesion is so important. But judge realized that they already lost their uniqueness, right? They have zero link to any of their impact. The meaning of NATO is to protect its members, but we do not affect any strategic security interest is what they're looking for, and we do not hear a dysfunctional Article 5. You can already drop their argument because they do not have any terminal impact to their argument. But even more onto a weighing. Literally Nikolskaya, literally hours ago, or like from months ago, just said how Putin is overseeing nuclear missile drills, making Turkey's Kursk radar station even more important so that NATO can intercept these missiles. Furthermore, we give you 950% more probability of a nuclear war plus 2 hour time frame compared to their argument on cohesion and security that they themselves cannot prove it will happen. And because of a world you would want to prefer with a huge increase of 950% in nuclear war and a world that keeps these states in check, we are so proud to affirm this motion. Thank you.
So again, my flow got a little messed up. So with with signposting, if you are gonna do like I guess I'll do the best that I can. Okay, so let me stop sharing my screen for a second. So for our con speaker, did you want to use some prep time?
Yeah, I'll take some running prep, which I'll start as soon as I get into the call with my partner. So I'll just give a thumbs up when it starts.
Okay. Yeah, unfortunately for my people watching, I am only able to share my screen with you. I cannot share the actual document with you. But yeah, I can share my screen only.
Okay,
Sorry, I just paused my. Sorry, I paused my timer. It was at 40 seconds, but I'll resume it now. Okay. So that was a total of around 2 minutes when you add 40 and 119. So I believe then we have 1 minute and 5 left.
105 left. Okay, give me one hot second. I'm going to try and see if I can fix something real quick. Okay, one more second. I'm just trying to line everything up. Supplementing my flow. We had that. Okay, I had all those arguments. And there we go. Argument. Yep, let me put that down here. Okay. All right, so thanks again to Grace. I've used her flow to kind of supplement mine. So make sure for signposting, please be clear about which case you're on and which contention you're on, because it's really difficult for me to kind of follow where we are in the debate. So yeah, again, please make sure you signpost which contention, which case, or if you're going to do it like in a way where I should just abandon the normal flow and go in like terms of themes or something. So whenever you're ready, go ahead and give me another roadmap if you already did.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm just gonna brief off time roadmap. I'll just be first going over some brief framing, then frontlining, extending, and weighing. Is anyone not ready? Okay. First on framing, we're going to believe that this round should be voted off of human rights. We're always going to win on probability because human rights abuses are happening now. It's already happened, it's still happening, and NATO is complicit. What's important is that NATO is funding and improving an entire ethnic cleansing that Turkey is doing, and only by taking Turkey out of NATO can we actually stop this from happening, as NATO's own purpose statement argues that human rights and the rule of law are the entire point of NATO, but also we outweigh on time frame because UN in 21 tells you that human rights violations are the root cause of conflict, and solving human rights abuses solves the root cause of their impacts. You're going to extend Kolga, which finds that if NATO is not unified due to then miscalculation is imminent. Thus, we're going to flow through probability of nuclear escalation. And further, Elahusin 21 finds that the NATO 2030 plan is unsuccessful if Turkey human rights abuses continue and they're undermining NATO. Thus, on the basis of NATO happening and is succeeding into the future, vote on human rights. Now let's move on to some brief frontlining. The first clash that we see is about the Montreux Convention and the Black Sea. Notice that our opponents concede to having no solvency because the fact is that NATO cannot send their ships in. Turkey cannot stop them from Russia from sending in their naval landing fleets. Further, we see that Turkey's entire force is non-unique because you're going to extend all that Dylan tells you because all the stations are stationed in Romania and that Turkey's forces are actually really small in what they supply to NATO. Thus, we can see that if we take Turkey out, it's not going to make a difference. But furthermore, Turkey can never actually stop an invasion because what Russia is doing right now is they're building up their forces to be able to attack Ukraine and for Turkey to not be able to provide any substantive difference. But second, on cohesion, they talk about how it's not undermined because NATO hasn't collapsed yet. We tell you in our entire case that it doesn't matter if it hasn't happened because what is going to happen is the probable and 100% guarantee that in the future NATO will collapse in on itself if Turkey remains in NATO because they're undermining this democracy. But finally, on the S-400, we're not collapsing on that, but second of all, extended cohesion on the S-400 because the Pentagon, according to Roman in 19, fears that Turkey is undermining cohesion, which means that this cohesion already doesn't exist, which means that this undermines deterrence and NATO cohesion in another entire way. So you're still going to flow over to our impacts about nuclear escalation. Finally, let's move on to some extensions on weighing. You're going to extend and collapse on cohesion, as Gott in 20 and Morkos in 21 tells you that Turkey has been undermining NATO cohesion and ability to make collective decisions, as well as military readiness, which undermines deterrence, which undermines NATO's ability to have the key thing that they're influential about the most. But second of all, on human rights, when we see that they're violating human rights with disregard by firing civil servants, as well as arresting 90,000 citizens, as well as committing human rights abuses such as the Kurds, and also using Syrian refugees as private militias, according to Cohesion 21, we see that this undermines NATO's core goals, and Elahusin 21 finds that NATO as a whole cannot be successful in the 2030 plan. We think that this is the most important because when we have the common interest in both of our opponents in countering Russian aggression, we see that we're the only side with any lasting solvency that finds that Turkey is, when we take Turkey out of the alliance, we actually see a NATO that happens in the future, a NATO that is able to counter Russia. And because of this, we can see that human rights and Turkey's lack thereof are the most important thing in this round and is why you should always vote for Khan.
All right, now in the con summary, I was able to actually flow everything. So yeah, if you are paying attention and watching the flow, I'll kind of do a slow scroll before we get to our final focus speeches. So let me stop sharing my screen. Let's do this grand Crossfire and then I'll give everybody a slow scroll during the last prep time so you can see the full flow. So whenever you're ready, let's do our grand cross.
Okay, grand cross time.
You guys ready?
You guys have the first question.
Okay. Daniel, do you have a question or can I go?
Oh, you can go first.
Okay. Okay, starting time now. Okay, so on cohesion, we already tell you time and time again that there's a lack of cohesion in NATO anyways. So how do you access any terminal impact that's specific to Turkey?
Okay, so we tell you in our case that Turkey's aggression has led to these secondary alliances becoming forced against them. What this means is that this flows into Cohesion 21, which finds that they cannot be successful in their 2030 plan. We think that even if NATO is incohesive in the status quo, at the very least, we still have the primary solvency on our side, because if you take
So you're saying that Turkey is like the
we have
primary?
a cohesive NATO that is able to counter a volatile Turkey.
Wait, so if Turkey is like not the only country causing like a lack of cohesion, wouldn't NATO be unable to meet their 2030 plan anyways then?
No,
we're
but they are
telling you
the
that-
biggest
we're telling you-
violator.
Are they
of
the
cohesion.
biggest?
They
yes,
are.
Yes, and we're also telling you that these secondary alliances are forming because of Turkish actions.
Yeah,
Well,
and
no,
just
we
to
already
add on
told
to
you that these are forming because of Greece, not Turkey.
Yeah, can I respond to your
Yeah, go
question?
ahead.
But we never heard a counterexample as to any other countries that's causing
Whoa,
a
no,
bigger
no.
concern to cohesion.
We gave you 3 counterexamples, though. First of all, France, Germany, and Italy disagreeing with the views of Russia being a threat. Second, the nuclear submarine defense pacts, in which France lost $65 billion. And also third, China's FDI hurts cohesion because it's building ties between NATO and China. How can you say that we have no examples?
Because we tell you that they don't. Okay, so is any of example directly hurting countries inside of NATO? Like,
well, I'd say yes if France is losing $65 billion.
Sorry?
And I'd say yes. I'd say yes because France is losing $65 billion. I'd say yes because there's a divide on which enemy like NATO should actually target. And I'd say yes because NATO countries are turning to China, which is supposed to be a NATO enemy. Correct?
Okay, we believe we responded to that, but can we have the next question?
All right, go ahead.
Rosie, do you have a question? Or I can?
You can go ahead.
Okay, so you have this whole thing about how like negotiation leads to the diplomacy and negotiation, and that will like essentially prevent the war from happening, right?
Correct.
Okay, so if we say everything you said about negotiation true, why would Putin himself say he's rejecting all new talks from the West until Ukraine's demands met?
Okay,
Yeah, Daniel, go ahead.
from January. Like it's from January 18th, I believe, and literally
Okay.
evidence.
Well, let's just in 2 weeks. Have we seen any negotiation happening?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd say yes, because the foreign ministers between the two countries are already talking. But furthermore,
They did
if you
not.
don't think that diplomacy is going to work and Russia is still going to invade Ukraine, it's then that you need Turkey's Black Sea access and navy.
Listen,
Yeah,
I
we're going
think
back
that's
to
cross.
naval
Let's just
access
quick-
again. I'll
okay,
address that.
there's still a few seconds of cross left. Let's just quickly point out that those are like Turkish and Ukrainian diplomats arguing, and that Russia has never agreed to holding talks with Ukraine, so there's no solvency on their side.
All right. Okay. So Pro, you have 2 minutes and 45 seconds of prep left. Is that right? Or did we?
I'll
did
take running crap. Sorry, it's 2:45, I think, right?
Okay. Yeah. Just making sure I didn't like miss something somewhere. I got a lot going
Yeah,
on.
okay.
All right. So whenever you're ready.
I'll just start that when I mute myself.
Okay. Yeah. Right. And I'm going to share my screen so that my viewers can see the flow that we've got so far. So I'll do my slow scroll. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more. For any of my people observing, anytime I have T, like a capital T in my flow, that stands for Turkey. A capital R stands for Russia. So sometimes if you have like repeated terms, you can just use the first letter of that word to represent it. I'm gonna scroll a little bit more.
That's my prep time.
All right, beautiful. Okay, go ahead and clear.
Okay, if everyone, oh, I have to give an off time roadmap, right?
Yeah, but it doesn't, if you're, for the final focus, I wasn't planning on flowing it like I did everything else. So yeah, whatever roadmap you want to give, Raymond.
All right, I'll be doing their case, our case, then weighing. Okay, starting time with my first word. You'll be voting pro for three main links of uniqueness. First, the charistic radar-based con can only solve a problem that they create here. Second, on the Black Sea, they neglect Turkey being NATO's only navy specific to countering Russia in the region. Third, Turkey is negotiating with Ukraine and Russia. This is happening right now. Now, on their case, first on cohesion, realize there's no cohesion anyways. We tell you this time and time again, and they don't respond at all. This means that there's no terminal impact they can access at all. They only respond to the idea that NATO hasn't collapsed. This was only brought up as like sort of an idea in cross. But second, on human rights, conflict creates the environment for human rights abuses, and conflict is what happens in their world, in Ukraine or in Turkey. I think that this is exactly what happens in their world. Furthermore, Turkey would only turn to Russia without NATO. We tell you this before. You vote here because it's always worse in their world. Furthermore, close to 90% of this human rights extension was never even brought up in any speech prior to second summary. Now, on refugees, we tell you that Turkey's refugees are happy to stay. 89% of them are happy with their conditions in Turkey. Now, on stability, the problem here is that there's literally no evidence saying that this actually impacted stability. Even if they want the long-term impacts, they can't have them because the deal's being reversed. They concede this as well. Finally, their own card says that Turkey doesn't even have the F-35 access that they once had. This is a blatant lie in their case. Now in our case, first on Ukraine. First on diplomacy, this is to prevent war, and countries are negotiating right now. It's the foreign ministers. We read this evidence. It's not like Turkish diplomats and Ukrainian diplomats. It's with Turkey, Ukraine, and Russia. Now on the Black Sea, realize that Turkey's navy is specific to countering Russia. This is important because if the Black Sea comes into play, if Russia invades, this is the entire link that Dylan and Rosie both miss. On proliferation, realize that Turkey isn't currently under threat because they have a nuclear defense from NATO. Take this away and they go nuclear. Their alternative they give to the charistic radar base only solves the problem they create, because Iran wouldn't even nuclearize without Turkey nuclearizing. On weighing, first on magnitude, Turkish radar systems are especially important if Iran or Russia were to launch missiles. A Turkish nuclear system would increase regional aggression by 950%. This happens with a nuclearized Turkey and Iran. In Ukraine, if war breaks out, there'll be 75,000 deaths and 5 million displaced. On probability, you vote on Ukraine as the probability is extremely high and urgent. This is the realist impact you get this whole round, as opposed to some lack of NATO cohesion, which could hypothetically hurt NATO decades from now, and it's done nothing in Turkey's 70 years of membership. Thus, we affirm.
All right. So if you didn't notice, whenever I flow for final focus, I kind of just abandon the format of going through each case, and I'll just flow the final focus in the order that is given. So for my con final focus, did you want to take the remainder of your prep time?
No, I'm good. I can just go.
Okay. All right. So let me.
Yeah, after roadmap doesn't really matter, but I'm gonna go their case, our case, weighing under two clashes.
Okay. All right. Are you gonna have an overview at the top?
I'm gonna give two clashes, and I'm gonna go into each one of the clash. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So just jump into it, and I'll figure it out.
Okay. Okay. So two main clash into this. First on security, second human rights abuses. First on security, Pro basically gave the whole contingent on negotiation, naval access, and radar base. But already took that down by saying that NATO's multinational land, naval, and air forces are all stationed in Romania, not Turkey. We heard no responses on our response. And now tell that their radar system is not unique because Israel radar already does the same thing in South School, which they have not responded to. They basically went like, okay, well, it's still better, but we tell that if it does the same thing, we don't need a better one, just need one that can do the same thing that they're trying to do. So they don't prevent the war from happening under their side world, because no negotiation will happen, and no negotiation is happening right now. If you look at the news, we see no negotiation between diplomats between two countries is happening. That means their negotiation point basically falls. Move on to our case. Crossfire Rubin card says that S400 will allow access to NATO codes, and our polling in 20 card that says that Turkish are using as this S-400 track down US aircraft at F-16 and F-35. This is an easy win here. We gave you the most likely and biggest impact to this debate. This info sharing is happening right now. The probability is 100%, which they conceded and crossed. So what do we see happening? A strong Russia and a weak NATO will lead to a war between US and Russia, resulting in 34.1 million deaths. This outweighs your 950% probability card, which doesn't even quantify how many that there will be saving. Even if you don't agree with that first point on security, you'll be voting on a second class human rights abuses. Pro's only response to human rights was preventing war prevents human rights violation. But we proved to you why they simply don't prevent a war under Pro. Our impact's happening now again, and our probability is 100%. Why is human rights so important to this debate? Because NATO is an alliance based on human rights and based on the respect to human rights. When you have a country like Turkey who's suspending 60,000 police personnel, 125 civil servants, and 90,000 innocent civilians, this is a blatant violation to human rights. Lives of vulnerable actors always is the biggest impact into this debate. This is happening right now, and for these reasons, we're very proud to oppose.
All right. Well, okay, beautiful. Well, thank you for my competitors. Round of applause for the competitors, even though like you can't really see all of the people, but yay, excellent job. Beautiful, beautiful. So a couple things I want to highlight about this debate. So if you're noticing a few things I want to highlight on the flow. So I was able to kind of adjust things and fix things. So if you're trying to see like, were you able to flow everything accurately? I'll give you one more little scroll so that you can see all the stuff. So we had, as you noticed, I ended up kind of taking my final focus flow and sort of restructuring it because typically with the final focus, it doesn't go in the same order of like, I'm going to do this contention and this contention and all of that stuff. So it is a little bit different. You can also notice how I inserted a row above the first contention. So that way I can add any like framing or overview stuff that happened up there. So I'm going to give this one last little scroll so you can do kind of a view of the full debate round. So we're going to scroll and scroll. A couple other things I want to highlight. So with the one thing that ended up getting messed up on my flow when I moved from this flow over to this one is that we had separate sheets. So whenever I moved onto the Google Doc, what I did is I started typing in the first con, but I needed to be typing in the second con. So thanks again, Grace, for letting me supplement mine with yours. I was able to kind of line everything up that way. So you can see these direct clash areas. We have the Middle East contention. So here we've got some direct clash lined up next to each other. So if you've never heard of this before, but you should always think of your flow as being a game board. So whenever you are flowing, you should do your best to try and line up the argumentation so it's right next to each other. So I think this cohesion area is where we have some really good lineup, and you can sort of see how we have this direct clash going back and forth in the cohesion debate. So I'll give us the scroll all the way to the bottom. And then here we have our security contention, right, where we have all of our conflict about the S-400s. So while I'm finishing scrolling through this, I want my competitors to share their input or their insight on something. So while I finish scrolling, I want my competitors to think and be able to share what was your takeaway from this topic. So we've done we've debated this topic. You just did a demo debate, and it's almost like you're doing this debate in a time machine because we're pretending that something big didn't happen so that we can have the debate. So what was your biggest takeaway from this topic? So I'll finish scrolling, and then we'll kind of talk about what we saw with the topic and things that we were surprised about. Okay. Yeah, there's the full scroll. All right, so we'll have this little discussion and then we'll do a little bit of Q&A. So let me stop sharing my screen. So yeah, do any of you want to share what your insight, what your biggest takeaway was from this topic? Who wants to volunteer?
I'm sure Dylan would.
Yes, Dylan looks like he really wants to share.
Okay, after I go, Raymond would love to go.
Okay,
he just told me on Discord chat.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, biggest takeaway from this Turkey topic is that NATO and Turkey is surprisingly complicated. I mean, I knew because it was September topic, but then there's so many facets to the same debate that is like you just have to know a lot. But like you don't. Like there's so many things that you know and you want to say, but then in the 4 minutes that you just have to be really concise about all of your arguments. Has to have a very clean flow. Yeah. And I just literally felt like I'm back to Stanford because like well, it's so long ago. I haven't looked at this topic in a month, and then for the demo debate, I was like, oh my god, okay, my old turkey dogs. I love
Right.
turkey. Oh my god.
All right, Raymond, what was your biggest takeaway from debating on this topic?
I think mostly just like PF is so technical. Like all the topics like require so much research and like it's too much work. Also, I never want to talk about Turkey or NATO ever again.
Yeah, me too. That's my biggest takeaway. NATO, no more. After doing this like 2 NATO topics in the span of 6 months, like NATO is out of my life. No.
Yeah, for all of our people who are watching, we had a NATO topic in, I believe it was November. Our November topic was about NATO in the Baltic states. So it was, you know, we've been talking about NATO a lot this year. Rosie, what was your biggest takeaway?
I think like trying to be adaptable because Dylan and I like this is our first time like we teamed up together and we're both like second speakers. In fact, everybody in this every competitor right now is actually normally a second speaker. But I had to learn how to be a first speaker for Stanford. And then I actually went into Stanford not knowing how to do a summary. I still don't really know how to do a summary because yeah. But I guess I just like learned the most about like trying to be adaptable and flexible and like learning from like people that I saw in round and like how they did their stuff.
Yeah, I think you gave an awesome summary today. So yeah, I was able to flow it, which was great, right? That's a good kudos to you. So Daniel, what was your biggest takeaway from this topic? And then I'll share mine.
Yeah, I guess like it's mostly about relevancy because like for example, our first contention is literally on Russia and Ukraine, and obviously it didn't really work out on like preventing the conflict. But like it kind of sets us up for knowing that knowledge about like Russia and Ukraine, and like personally, I was really following what's exactly happening like right after, and like trying to know what's going on. But unfortunately, the invasion happened, and it's still happening. Yeah.
Yeah, for so many times I was trying to go for like the whole argument of like, see, Ukraine was invaded. That means Pro has no solvency for Turkey. But then I realized, no, it's pretending this didn't happen.
Yeah, so excellent. Thank you all for sharing. So I think for me, the biggest thing to take away from this topic is I've been around debate for a long time. It's been like, like, I don't know, 16 years I've been involved in debate, at least like as a competitor or a coach. And for this topic is very timely. And as they've all kind of pointed out, when we were working on this topic, if you notice in the debate, there was a lot of scenario building, like speculation on what possibly could happen. How might Turkey be helpful in this situation? For those of you that aren't aware, Turkey actually did block Russia from entering the Black Sea after Russia invaded Ukraine. They did trigger the Montreux Treaty. So that actually became something that was like real time. There are like obviously our speculation on like Turkey being able to negotiate hasn't really shaken out, but there were some pieces of the arguments that we were able to make in this topic that came true. As well, there's the speculation that Russia would invade Ukraine, which eventually, unfortunately, is the thing that happened. And so what I want everyone to kind of take away from this is that these topics that we debate in public forum can be very timely. We can have topics where like the situation can change while you're debating. In fact, when we were at finals at Harvard, I believe Russia actually started their invasion of Ukraine while we were in the final round. And so our opponents and us, we were like getting information like before the round, like right before the round started. So it's really interesting to be on top of these topics and kind of be in the middle of navigating these things that are happening in real time and are affected by like real world geopolitics. So let me provide a little bit of insight to everyone, and then I am going to allow some Q&A. So for those that aren't aware of kind of what we do when we are preparing for a topic, I'm just going to give everybody sort of a little look. If you're like, what do we do? If you're only familiar with CNDF, or like more impromptu formats, that you might do a little bit of preparation if you have a planned motion or a prepared motion. PF debate is very, very preparation oriented. I think they've all highlighted that it's a lot of work. So when we start out a file, it might just have a starter case and some blocks, but it ends up expanding drastically. And so when we're looking at what a file would look like, for example, just to give you a little peek, Whenever we are engaging in planning for or preparing for a debate tournament, our files start as nothing, and then as a team, we build our cases, we build our blocks, and we end up having huge files like this, for instance, that kind of break down every possible argument that could be made against us in the debate. We have block files for the pro, we have block files for the con, and we really try and think through what is every possible thing that could be said. So to give you an example of what some of these things look like, so if I were going to go to radar, AT, heuristic, this is what each kind of block looks like. We've got sort of analytic responses that are worded, as well as some carded responses with evidence to kind of frame what will our planned response be to that argument. So I really want to give you some insight in how much work really goes into public forum, how much work all of our students do and all our team does in order to prepare for these. These blocks are written by, it is a team effort. Everybody works together to create all of the arguments that we end up dealing with in public forum. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. I'm going to change the settings so that we can see all of our non-video people. So let me go ahead and turn, let me see, unhide the non-video participants. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to open up for a Q&A. So if you have a question that you would like answered verbally, go ahead and use the raise your hand reaction, and you can answer any questions that you might have. I did get a question that asked if there will be a winner for this debate. There will not be a winner for this debate. This is largely for just educational purposes. But if you do have any questions that you would like to ask verbally, I'm going to go ahead and open that up for anyone. So any questions about the debate, about the format, about the Ukraine-Turkey situation, the Russia scenario, anything like that. So yeah, I will double check on that. Let me see. I got a question in the chat. Let me forward that to see if I can get an answer.
So question, can I get a recording of the round? Yes, and we are actually gonna publish it on YouTube later tomorrow or next week, and then we'll share the link with everybody. So yes, you will get a recording of the round. And yes, Dylan, you will be on YouTube. And Daniel and Rosie and Raymond, you will be on VDA's YouTube channel.
That's my 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah, and all of my hot mess tech issues will be on YouTube. It'll be great. Okay, so I'm having people ask, I had someone ask if I could share my flow template. So this is the template. Now, for public forum, this is the template that I usually use. If you want to set up a sheet like this one, it's really, you just have two different pages, and I just have it organized where we have like pro, con, pro, con. The only thing with PF that makes the online flow templates a little bit tricky, I'll share this with everyone if you want to make a copy of it and save it for yourself. It's literally just a Google Doc with a table, but you know, it is helpful. But if let's see, there's that. So for this, for the flow template, if you want to use this, you totally can make a copy of it. The only thing is, remember, for public forum, they flip for sides. So you might be in a PF debate where the con goes first and the pro goes second. So it might benefit you to create two PF flow templates. Have one that's the pro first PF template and one that's the con first PF template. So that way you can have two templates, and then based upon what you're going to be, what side you're going to be on, you can kind of utilize it that way. But this is the simple tables that I use. And then, like I said, with sheets, you can create your own sheets and do it this way. It's just I'm not as familiar with Excel, and the shift enter thing really messes with me. I flowed on paper for like my entire debate career. So this has definitely been a different experience doing things online. Hence my, my technical struggle sometimes in today's debate. But yeah, there is that. Let me see. Any other questions that are pertinent to the debate or the topic that we debated? Anything like that? All right, and let me ask one more question. Yeah, I mean that's a question. So I've got a question that let me double check this real quick. Wow. Getting clarification. Okay, so I've got a question for Raymond and Rosie. So what are your typical final focus strategies? How do you typically structure a final focus?
Mine's never structured.
Same.
I extend like a couple important responses and then reconstruction and stuff, and I do weighing, I guess.
Yeah,
Not very structured though.
generally, I don't have like a set structure. I do my final focuses like during prep time and like during my opponent's speeches, and then it like varies round by round. Um, generally, I go over like framing of the debate though, like what I think like the most important clashes, and then I go under like what's been said in the round and like how our arguments outweigh.
Okay. What about Daniel and Dylan? Did you guys have a specific structure you typically use for your final focus?
I go by my two clashes. Oh my god, my voice. Sorry, yeah. I go by the two clashes, then I go on to their case, then I go to my case, and then weigh. It's kind of like CNDF summary. And I
Yeah.
just carried it to PF. Yeah.
Gotcha. And then Daniel, how do you structure your final focus typically?
Yeah, like Dylan's like really similar with CNDF summary. It's just like we have to make sure that we are extending stuff mentioned from summary, like the actual summary speech, earlier on in our final focus, and not bring up any new things. But it's just like two clashes and a weighing, but make sure we include the cases and stuff that we want to collapse on in these themes.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I've got another question. So for the debaters, how did you feel during the demo debate? So how do you feel during the demo debate? So let's start. Does anyone want to volunteer to go first?
Raymond does.
Raymond wanted to speak.
Okay, Raymond wants to go first. So Raymond, how do you feel during the demo debate?
I deserve this, so I'll go. I'm kind of sick, so I don't feel very good. And also, I'm getting flashbacks from Harvard and Stanford, and I don't like it. And also, it's so hard pretending that Russia never invaded. Like, I was trying so hard, like in cross, not to mention that like Turkey closed off the straits.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would probably be the most complicated thing about this topic, is figuring out like how do we navigate this. But what I think is cool about this demo debate is that it did show everyone kind of what were our predictions, how did we kind of lay things out, and then what actually happened in real time. So I think that like it is beneficial, even though it was really weird for everyone. I think it is definitely beneficial. I'm going to make all of you share how you felt about during the demo debate. So let's make Rosie.
Yeah, but Dylan is very, very eager to go next.
Yeah,
I'm going to make Rosie go next and then Dylan.
Oh, okay. I see how it is. I agree completely with what Raymond said. Like every single word. I also like felt like it was a bit pressuring, I guess, because like it's a demo debate and we're here to try to like provide sort of like an example of what debate is and teach it to people who might not have debated before or tuning in just this once to see like a debate round in PF for like the first time. So I wanted to like try my best to provide a good example that and like kind of gives a good view and like a good overview and teaches people adequately what PF is about.
Awesome. Thank you, Rosie. Okay, Dylan, it's your turn.
Yes, Dylan's very eager to answer. How did I feel demo debate? Yeah, it's like flashbacks to Stanford and Harvard. Oh, I didn't go to Harvard, but like Stanford and like prepping in classes, which is like really funny. But this is just with spectators. It's like the Stanford's finals that we never got because we are co-champions.
Well, fuck me. I didn't get to finals.
Well,
man.
Raymond would have if unlucky,
Yeah, unlucky.
very unlucky.
Yeah.
All right. And then Daniel, how did you feel doing the demo debate?
Like really similar with other previous, like what Dylan, Rosie, and Raymond said. It's like a bit pressure, but also trying to like get that horrible memory from like Harvard and Stanford about like debating about Turkey and all that, and especially now we're moving to Japan. It's like everything is so different, and like yeah, I oftentimes I misread Article 9 as Article 5, and it was always so awkward. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that we were, thinking about is we're about to go into the Japan topic for the next like NSDA topic, and then now we're like, now we're going back to the Turkey topic. I have one more question. Let's see. So for the competitors, how did it feel competing at Stanford and Harvard? I know you all are like, I feel like I'm doing flashbacks. So let's talk a little bit about that experience. So let's go in backwards order. So we'll have Daniel go first. So how did it feel competing at Stanford and Harvard, if you were at Stanford and Harvard?
Oh yeah. Okay. So like Stanford and Harvard is like two completely different like extremes. Stanford we did like great, and then like throughout it was just like really fun. We debated almost every single round on con, which is exactly the same as Dylan and Rosie. They debated every single round on con, and we were like human rights is superior, and we went on that every single time, and it was great. And then on Harvard, everything changed. We didn't even break. It was so awkward, because the human rights kind of got outdated in that one, and also like we have to adjust and like with our strategies, but we didn't like kind of fail to do that. So it was kind of a hard time during Harvard, but like overall, it was a really fun experience.
Awesome. And then let's go to who is next. We're going backwards. So what is it? Raymond, and then Rosie, and then Dylan. So Raymond, what was it like competing at Stanford and Harvard?
I did like the same, like in terms of results at Stanford and Harvard, but I'm like the opposite of everyone else here. My partner Jack and I were pro heavy, so we debated pro. We debated one con round in both Stanford and Harvard, and we lost that round. So then we kind of just kicked our con case and then went pro. And we didn't win a single elim round in both tournaments. We broke reasonably high seed and then we lost. Yeah.
This topic was really tricky. Topic. Let's go to Rosie. What was your experience competing at Stanford and Harvard?
So like I already mentioned earlier, like both of them were like quite like new to me. Even though like for Harvard, even though I was a second speaker like before, by Harvard I forgot how to do a second speaker, so I had to relearn how to do a second speaker. And again, I still do not completely remember how to second speaker, because yeah. But also like Daniel mentioned, Dylan and I actually went con first every single round, and even in the elim rounds. So that was really funny. And in Harvard, I feel like the judges were more pro heavy, because like they just seemed to prefer pro, like even when we had like the same rounds repeated. But either way, it's probably deeper than that. Well, it is deeper than that. And then I'll just continue reflecting on my rounds again. But generally, I feel like competing in Stanford and Harvard in general and all debate tournaments, although it's really fun, it can also like sometimes be like really stressful for debaters. So I think one thing to keep in mind for everyone in general when you're competing is like to like go reflect on the previous round, but like don't let it affect your next round. And also second of all, like remember to like take care of yourself while you're inside, like while you're like doing the tournament, and don't neglect your health. Otherwise when you get to like the end of the day, you're going to be pretty down in the dumps, and like you're not going to be able to like think and debate at all, and that's not something that you want.
Excellent. Thank you, Rosie. Excellent advice. Okay, who is Dylan? I'm having you go last. So Dylan, what was your Stanford Harvard experience?
Well, yeah, similar to Rosie, basically covered what I was I was going to say. We went con every single round, con first to be more specific. So this is actually a change for me, at least. That going con second, that's something different. We went con first during the entire tournament, all the way to the final. And I'm so glad that Daniel and Sally won in the semis, because like if they didn't, we would have to debate another round, but we didn't have to. So like, thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Sally.
Yes, excellent. So one thing that I want to highlight, so in the chat, I added the demo debate flow. So if you want to look back at the flow, it's not the best flow in the world, but we did our best with all of the challenges that we had. So if you wanted to look back at that demo debate flow, I've shared that link in the chat for you to view. I have one more question. And again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to send them to me in chat. I have the question. It says, it sounds like PF is very political focused. How do you like that compared to like CNDF, where it's less politically driven, I guess, with some of the topics that you get? Yeah, Rosie?
Okay, so I'm just gonna steal the responses first so that I don't have to go like, oh, what they said. So I think that I like the evidence part of PF because like the downside is that there's a lot of research and work that you have to put in, but the upside is that you can actually provide substance and you can learn really useful skills such as citing evidence and these things in PF, which I feel like I don't really get in like Canadian debate formats. But what I like about CNDF and CrossX and all these Canadian ones and BP is that there's more analysis involved rather than PF, where sometimes you can dissolve into some really crappy, just like our evidence is better than your evidence debates. So I think that's something useful if like we could get like a merge of like the analysis as well as like citing evidence and using that to further your arguments, then it would be really good.
Yeah, so something that Rosie has pointed out that's really important there is Canadian formats typically focus on, they're very analytical. There's a lot of analysis that goes into it with the types of topics that you get. With public forum debate, it is a US format. And so one thing that I can show you, there we go. You go to the main page. If you go to speechanddebate.org, I'll put that link in the chat. This is the main NSDA website. Which is the National Speech and Debate Association. Speechanddebate.org is where you can find topics and all of the things relating to US formats. So let me share that real quick and I'll show you. So if you go to speechanddebate.org, for anyone who's curious, in case you're wondering, how do they get topics and all of that? For PF, in the fall, we get a new topic once every other month. And then in the spring, we get a topic once every month. So if you go to competition and topics, and then scroll down. This shows you all of the topics for the different formats. So for PF, this has the topic from this month and the topic for next month, but all the way at the bottom, it shows you all of the different topic areas that happen throughout the year. So for PF, you will have one topic for like at least a month that you're gonna debate on repeatedly. So it gets you a lot of in-depth analysis on all of that stuff. Does anybody have anything else they wanted to share in terms of like PF being political focused, or did Rosie steal all of the answers?
I guess I like that PF is like evidence-based and that like you can have like actual things that like articles that support what you're saying instead of just like sounding really convincing and just being like, yeah, that's probably true. But I also don't like, just like Rosie said, when you get into debates that are just like, my evidence says this, therefore I'm right. Like, I like the impromptu aspect where like you get to build on your own thoughts and like it's not just what someone else says.
Awesome. Yeah. So like with PF, you do have to have that evidentiary support. Yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, and also another thing is that like you can get a lot more like somehow variety like with PF. Like almost every single PF topic we can like hear a gender equality or like environment argument coming out of nowhere with like the weirdest link ever. Which like I feel like is very interesting when we're debating them or like even if we have them ourselves to like show this link and offer this perspective that is like completely new and like diversified in as opposed to like, standard CNDF ones where like, it's hard to like think of a completely like new idea within the 20 minutes of prep time, right?
Sorry, say that again, Daniel. What was the last thing you said?
Oh yeah, like as opposed to CNDF when like it's kind of hard for us to think of a very, I guess like new and varied perspective when within our 20 minutes of prep time.
Yeah, exactly. And then Dylan, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I feel the same thing because I did do CNDF for like the first like 2 years of my debate experience. So I like the thing about CNDF, like you can do a lot of analysis. You have to learn to be a lot more adaptive than PF even because like PF you do have blocks that's you wrote down before the tournament. But then I don't really like prepping in 30 minutes or like 15 minutes for BP. That's just too stressful for me. So yeah. And I feel like it's more realistic with PF. Like, say if you were to be a lawyer, you will have everything prepared for you. Like a PF. You wouldn't go onto court and be like, oh, this is my analysis of the situation. You have all the facts and evidence.
Yeah, for sure. I think that one thing that we've kind of talked about is having the ability to go more in depth with analysis and things like that in PF is like one thing where it is kind of evidence heavy, but whereas with the Canadian formats, you have more, I don't know, room to do that analysis, but the prep times are different, right? So with CNDF and Canadian formats, you get like, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes maybe of prep time, whereas with PF, you kind of have, like I said, that whole month to 2 months where you can always go back and add things and update and do updates on like your evidence and dates and all this stuff like that. I do have a couple more questions in the chat. So let's see. One question that I have here is, so do you all want to go varsity next year? So in terms of competing at tournaments in varsity, do you want to go varsity next year? So what do we think? Are you already in varsity? Do you want to go varsity? What's our input on that?
We're all in JV. And do we get a choice?
I don't know if you will get a choice. I think we might be making.
Do we get a choice? I mean, JV suits me just fine. I mean, thriving in JV.
Yeah, thank you. I like JV very much.
Yeah, varsity, not so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think you're all, next year you're all kind of going to be forced to do varsity if you're in JV. So
well, in that case, they wouldn't get a choice. So
yeah. Daniel, do you compete in JV right now as well? Yeah.
Kelly and I are in JV right now. It's our first year.
Okay, yeah. So you all might be, I think you might all be forced to move up to varsity next year. So it's going to be awesome. We're going to do great things.
Say what?
What, Rosie?
Say what?
I said you're probably all going to move up to varsity next year and you're going to do great things.
I'm in grade 10.
It'll be fine. I competed in varsity the entire time I was in. We actually didn't used to have JV in policy. We just had novice and then varsity. So like you get your first year novice and the next year you're in varsity and then you're against everybody. But we'll figure it out. Conversation for later. So I have another question. So for our competitors, do you have any tips on research? Let me see. Do you have any tips for researching information for PF debates?
Literally just Google. Just like Google anything you want.
No Google.
Yeah, the internet's a great place.
Yeah, no Google. Like so, like know like the different types of like search engines like that how you can manipulate it. Like I only know one, but like some people know more. It's like apostrophes. It like you can narrow the searches down to have to include what you put in between them. So you can use that to find like relevant pieces of evidence as well as like some different types of narrowing down results. So that's helpful.
Yeah, so like Boolean operators, I think is what you're talking about, is the different like quotation marks and plus signs and all that stuff. Sorry, Daniel, go ahead.
Oh yeah, like I was gonna say, like it's really important to know like what you're researching, like putting keywords and like, because Google has this like advanced function where it can help you like eliminate things that you don't want to search and also like search specifically for something that you want to do, and also just to check like your sources. For example, like for our Turkey motion specifically, if there's like a thing called Daily Sabah, it's like literally Turkey's like national, news outlet. So try not to trust it when it's doing like pro-Turkey stuff, right? It's always nice to check sources and also, to make sure that it's trustworthy, and also like you can, point them out when you're during debate if your opponent uses it.
Yeah. Anything else? Any other research?
I feel like you just have to be flexible when you're researching. You can't, like, sometimes you don't necessarily just search the words of the motion and like your evidence will show up. You just have to be a lot more flexible. So even when you're saying, like when we're researching about our S-400 missiles, it was really hard because, well, other than most of the facts are classified, the rest of them isn't like completely what you would want to use on Colin. So
yeah,
you just have to be smart.
Generally try to like do your researching beforehand because it's a big pain in like the it's like a big like headache. And also let's just point out that like it's really funny how our S400 point was like last minute done. So that's pretty funny. Because like we legitimately could not find anything on the internet until like basically the last minute. So just be sure to allot enough time for it.
Yeah. Anything else? Yeah, I just kind of want to piggyback on that. For sure, like when you're doing research, especially in public forum debate, it deals with a lot of geopolitical topics, a lot of like global topics. And there are a lot of countries that have like, news networks or like, propaganda, like almost every country probably has some sort of like news outlet that leans toward the area of propaganda or like their national kind of nationalistic kind of literature. So I think that it's really important for this topic, especially that we were making sure that we didn't use evidence that was too biased in the direction of the country that we were talking about. Okay, is there any other questions that we have? You can unmute, send it to me directly in chat. Okay, I have one more thing. I wanted to just kind of mention to everyone that registration is still open for our term 3 classes, and term 3 is starting next week. So we, urge you to sign up for classes so that you can, get in on, the action and get better at debate and maybe reach the level that all of our debaters here have reached. So, just don't forget that term 3 registration is still open. I have one more question, then we'll wrap it up. So my last question. How long did you debate CNDF before you tried other formats? So whoever wants to answer that first, how long did you do CNDF before you reached into like a PF format?
I did it for 2 years. I did it in grade 8 and grade 9. Then I switched.
Okay, so Dylan had 2 years.
Like similar grade 8 and then the half of grade 9 until like February, and then I started PF as a novice, and then and all the way PF.
Okay.
I think I only did 1 year of CNDF for like half a year, and I wasn't really taking it really seriously. I didn't take debate very seriously at the time. I was just messing around, and then I switched to PF and then Worlds.
Yeah, and then Rosie?
I think I did a little over 1 year. So I started debate when I was in grade 7 through the school club. And then I think I started PF in 2020. So around like a little over 1 year.
Yeah. And then so the next question actually is a piggyback off of that. So do you think debating CNDF helps you later on in context of like other debate formats or just in life in general? How does CNDF help you just in general?
Well, you have to be a lot more, let's say, adaptive, and you have to be better at thinking on the spot for CNDF, because the entire debate is just impromptu, basically. You may, even for prep motion, you normally wouldn't prep blocks or a lot of them like PF. So yeah, I think I'll say it helps, especially in Crossfire. Other areas, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it really helps just because like most formats of debate are pretty similar. And I just find CNDF the most intuitive and like easy to understand, like constructive, refutation, and then summarizing.
Yeah, and it really kind of helps you to think on the spot, especially like how kind of fast paced, I guess, like CNDF could be sometimes. But like also, I want to argue the opposite, because like PF benefits CNDF just because from personal experience, after doing so long for PF, when I returned back to like a random impromptu round, I realized that like I can cross apply a lot of rebuttal strategies that I've been using on PF, like delinking, like turning, like all that kind of stuff into impromptu again, and then like it's really fun.
Yeah, I learned a lot about like how to like do some debating in PF, but like for CNDF, like there's still kind of different formats. And now I feel like I can't write a CNDF case because I automatically think in PF and like citing like a bunch of evidence and using cards to like link together arguments and stuff like that, which is kind of sad, but it's okay. Um, because I can just like try to learn CNDF again. I feel like a difference between CNDF and PF is like also like on adaptability in general. Like CNDF, it's kind of the norm to speak slower, but in PF you might have heard some of us like speaking faster today, and that's because like you get like a lot smaller amount of time to do your speech, like 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. It's like not enough time. So like a lot of PFers will just like speak so fast that you can barely keep up. And that's a skill that you gain in PF that you can cross apply to CNDF and like help you further. But also second of all, I feel like in PF you have to be further more adaptable because there are these like parent judges, but there are also like flow judges, which are judges that are more experienced in speed perhaps. So you have to, sometimes you might have to like even write two cases, one adapted for parent judges who want you to speak slower, and one for like the flow judges who can keep up. So
Yeah. Thank you. And I'll also add, just from my experience, I did policy debate for 9 years, which is like a US format, which is very much like they're 8-minute speeches. So 8-minute speeches, people speaking as fast as possible. It's all evidence based. But what I've noticed being introduced to CNDF is that this is a format that really applies to a lot of other formats as well, like World Schools Debate, for instance, is a great transition from CNDF because you are used to that impromptu format, you're used to the analysis, you're used to POI strategy. And so CNDF does give you the skills, the analytical skills to kind of branch out and apply to other debate formats outside of, well, PF is applicable, but outside of that, there are a lot of other formats that you can sort of carry over into, like BP and World Schools. And even I think there's a Canadian cross-examination format that might also be applicable in that context. Okay, any other questions in the chat, verbally? All right. Well, in the chat, I have shared with you my debate flow from the demo debate. I'll go ahead and share that one more time in case you missed it. So let me go ahead and pull that up. So I'll share my debate flow one more time in case you missed it. And then remember that if you are interested in PF debate, there is the speechanddebate.org so that you can see the possible topics and topic areas that were suggested for the year. Typically, the voting for the topics happens like at the beginning of the month. So, oh, thank you. So there is the demo debate flow there in the chat if you wanted to look at that again. So if there are no questions, I think we can go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you all so much for observing. Thank you to our competitors for competing and showing everyone how awesome public forum debate is. So have a wonderful night, and hopefully you come to see us again in another demo debate in the future. Thank you. Thank you.